Though a small southern town in the upper northeast portion of Mississippi, the small town of Corinth, Mississippi has a big history. With my recent research on the Civil War, I can tell you about the history of Corinth, Mississippi. The Battle of Corinth will give you a brief glimpse into the events that happened during the Civil War. The Civil War was a bloody battle fought not only in Corinth, Mississippi, but 23 other states as well. Neither the North nor the South was willing to compromise on their political stances. Founded only a decade before the Civil War, Corinth, Mississippi, a small southern town, is a main railroad junction that connects the Memphis, Charleston Railroad running east and west, and the Mobile and Ohio Railroads running north and south. These railroads were the main form of transportation for troops, arms, and supplies during the Civil War, as cited by O'Connell in Classic Crossroads in Civil War times. As you can see, Corinth became a strategic point of mobilization due to supplies being brought in for Confederate soldiers. The year 1860 marked a pivotal time in the U.S. Abraham Lincoln was elected the first president for the Republican Party. This election is often thought of as the turning point for the events that led to the Civil War that started in 1861. The southern states felt the election of Abraham Lincoln as the president was a sign that they had lost their power and influence over the government. After the election of Lincoln, 7 southern states succeeded, and soon after 4 other states joined them, forming the Confederate States of America. If you look at the slide before you, blue represents the Union/North, red represents the Confederate States or South, yellow represents the states that supported slavery but did not join the Confederacy, and the white states were not organized as states during this time. During the 1800s, economical differences between the North and South states were drastic. The northern states were more industrial and held more than twice as many railroad tracks than the South did. The southern economy was dependent on the growing of crops, especially cotton. With the southern economy depending on the growing of crops, slavery became abundant in the South. Unlike the North, the South had few immigrants to work their fields. The southern farmers felt the northern states benefited at the southern farmers' expense due to tariffs. Tariffs were paid to the North due to the South's lack of factories. With the South's dependency on the northern credit to finance their growing crops, the northern market, and the North owning most of the railroads, the South felt exploited by the North, as noted by Menshor's book, The Civil War, A Consensus History. With the South's growing fear of falling under the North's control, newspapers and politicians stressed the need for the South to be independent. Though the South invested in many railroads and non-agricultural ventures, the South continued to fall behind the North in industry. Most of the South felt their way of life was threatened by the Republicans' pledge to stop slavery and the North's continued industrial achievements. Efforts to compromise failed, and in April 1861 the Civil War started. The Civil War was fought in over 24 states. As the Union Army started making progress in Kentucky and Tennessee, they began to set their sights on Corinth, Mississippi. As the Union military grew nearer to Corinth, the Confederacy Army surprised the Union troops at Pittsburgh Landing in Tennessee to defend Corinth's railroad. This battle is known as the Battle of Shiloh. The plan was to take control of Corinth, and the Confederate Army would be cut off from their supplies and give them control over the railroad. As stated by O'Connell in Classic Crossroads in Civil War times, with Corinth's railroad junctions connecting Memphis and Charleston Railroad running east and west, and the Mobile and Ohio Railroad running north and south, the railways would help the Union gain control over more territory and hinder the Confederate troops. The Confederates lost the Battle of Shiloh and retreated to Corinth, bringing many of their wounded with them. The victorious Union gave them little reprieve, and soon after the Battle of Shiloh, the Union forces laid siege to Corinth. The Union Army had control over Corinth for several months. However, the Confederates were not willing to allow the Union to keep control of Corinth and attacked the Union Army in and all around Corinth in a bloody battle. The Confederates suffered great loss, and after the battle they evacuated Corinth, as stated by Causin's blunder at the bridge in Civil War times. Nearly 1 in 5 of the Confederates who fought were dead. Upon evacuation, the detail guarding the bridges were ordered not to burn the bridges until the last train had passed. However, the detail burnt the bridges before the last of the trains could pass through, causing the Confederates to lose 60 railroad cars full of supplies, as stated in Soar article, O'Brien's Barren Triumph in American Civil War. Once the battle ended, the Union remained in control of Corinth until the war was over. In conclusion, Corinth, Mississippi has forever been put in the history books due to the fight between the Confederate and Union Army, both wanting control of the small town's railroad. Pictured here is a picture of the Corinth train depot, showing the railroads running not only north and south, but west and east. The small town has a 20-acre national cemetery that was established in 1866. The cemetery contains the remains of nearly 6,000 Union soldiers who fought at Corinth and around Corinth, and the remains of a few Confederate soldiers. Most Confederate soldiers were buried in mass graves. With the town's railroads running both north and south, west and east, it was a main hub for transportation, not only troops, but also supplies to and from other states during the Civil War. Corinth, Mississippi's railroads and the town played an important role in the battle between the North and South during the Civil War. The Civil War brought major events in history to the small town of Corinth, Mississippi. Corinth contains not only the National Cemetery, but also has numerous landmarks and even a Civil War interpretive center for people to learn more about the Civil War.